Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started with our webinar, I'm just going to let everybody settle in and I'll give you a couple of tips. Today's webinar will be a Q&A as well, so you can please leave your questions in the chat section or the Q&A. We are monitoring those closely and we'll take those up. If you have any questions or feedback for the Chamber in general, or would like to give us ideas on future webinars you'd like to see, please send them to info@windsor-essex-chamber.org. And we also encourage you to go to our website. We have a COVID-19 tab with the latest updated resources and information. Also, we update our social media daily, and you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. As well, our previously recorded webinars are available on our YouTube page. They can be found on our website as well. This webinar will also be recorded and available for viewing at the end of this week. We have some resources as well that are on our website. So take a second, settle in, and we'll get started in one moment. Okay, at this time, I will hand it over to our Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Rakesh Naidu.
Thanks, Marina, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Business Briefs Interactive webinars. For those of you who have been with us before on the webinar series, you know, we're offering some very select topics, topics that are of interest to you, that would help you in dealing with the current situation, and tips and tools and advice from experts. So hopefully you're benefiting from this. We are definitely very interested in hearing from you in terms of your comments, suggestions, inputs, and also if you have any topics that you'd like to cover, please just send it over to us. For those that are joining us for the first time, this is our webinar series where we have opened it up to the entire community. We welcome your participation, participation of everyone in the community, because at this time, all of us need to work together. All of us need to help each other out. And the Chamber is here to support you, whether you're a business owner or whether you're an employee or whether you're head of a family. All of us are facing a lot of crisis in our individual environments, and we need whatever help and support we can get and leverage from each other. So the Chamber is doing this, and we are very happy that you know, this has been received very well by several in the communities. We've got a lot of positive feedback, and we hope to continue this and hope to continue to offer the you know, the offerings and the topics that would be of interest to you. So we're getting into week 6 of the lockdown, and it's not been easy on anyone. We have, as per the latest numbers, we have about 586 confirmed cases here, and unfortunately we've lost 49 people. So it's definitely a time of crisis. You know, the numbers are increasing elsewhere as well, in Canada and in Ontario. Though the good news is that, you know, the numbers have slowed down to the extent that, you know, Canada, there are some provinces that are looking at reopening the economy. We've heard of Manitoba looking at it, Saskatchewan looking at it, and eventually, you know, Ontario and us here, we will be reopening our economy as well. Once the time is right, and once we know that we have a better handle on the situation, and we can avoid a resurgence or a repeat of the issues. So, but we're not yet there. So we all need to do our best in terms of supporting healthcare officials and the advice that we're given by local officials as well as officials from the province and from the federal government. So, the federal government, province, local government, as you know, have announced several programs that are benefiting companies and individuals. We have talked about that in your previous webinars. There is a page that we have on our website that has really compressed and condensed all the information, has summarized it for you. It's a great tool. It's one-stop shop for you that you can go to the website and get all the information that you need related to COVID, what's happening, what are some of the programs and the deadlines for those programs and the eligibility criteria, and all of that information you can find there. As you know, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, which was announced earlier, is now open. They're accepting applications. That the portal opened on the 27th of this month. So if you're eligible, encourage you to go and apply. Thousands of companies have applied, and please make sure that you're taking advantage of that at the earliest. NRC IRAP application, the program deadline is today. So if you qualify, again, the qualification eligibility criteria is on the IRAP page. It's also linked on our COVID-19 updates page at on the Chamber's website. Those programs are all good, but we all know, and especially the Chamber recognizes that more help is needed. And we continue to work with various levels of government through the Chamber network to highlight some of the gaps that still exist. We're very clear that more needs to be done, and we've communicated very clearly to the federal government and the provincial government about the small companies, especially the micro companies, that are not able to take advantage of the CEWS program because they don't have $20,000 or more in terms of payroll. Those companies, we definitely want to highlight their issue and concern, and we continue to do so. We've been told that the government is looking at it closely, and we may hear something back. So stay tuned while we continue to advocate on your behalf with the government. And as I mentioned, the economy is going to open. So the Chamber, along with our partners in the task force, are working at looking at how do we really open the economy? What are some of the steps we need to take to recover from the situation? So there is a lot of planning that's going in, a lot of strategies that are going in. If you have any thoughts or suggestions for us, again, please feel free to provide that to us through info@windsor-essex-chamber.org. So as leaders, whether we are leader in an organization, or whether we are owners of our businesses, or whether we are head of the family, we all are having a lot of challenges. This has been a very difficult time at many different levels. And at this time, leadership styles will need to change. We will need to adapt. We'll need to think about how we can be there for our employees, for our staff, for our clients, and what can we do in this situation so that we are able to not just take care of our business, but be there for others that depend on us, whether it's employees or whether it's our family members, whether it's our stakeholders, whether it's supply chain partners. We ought to be there for them. And that's why I think leadership style needs to change. And we need to really also take care of ourselves. If we are able to put attention to our own mental health, our own strengths, we'll be able to help others. And this is what I think we need at this time, a change in leadership style, and for us to look into what are some of the effective ways in which we can lead at this time. And how can we think, as leaders earlier before COVID-19 hit, we were concerned and consumed about productivity, we consumed about profitability. Post COVID-19, profitability and productivity has taken a completely new meaning or a different meaning. But we know that it is important that we focus on that. How do we focus on productivity enhancement, and how do we really take ourselves back, slowly get ourselves back on track? Productivity and mental health is related, as we know. In fact, WHO has come up with a number that over $1 billion is lost every year due to productivity losses, and that is connected to mental health. So mental health is very important. So as leaders, we need to take care of people, be the leader that our employees would like to work, especially in this stressful time, still contribute with us and walk with us. We need them more than ever, and the employees and the staff need the leader to be there and leading them in the right direction in the right way. And at the same time, we need to take care of our people's mental health. So to talk us or to provide us more insight into this, we have two experts from the Windsor-Essex region who are done extremely well in this domain. We would like to, introduce both Ronna and Stephanie to you. So please allow me to make a formal introduction. Many of you know Ronna. She's been a very well-known leader in our community. She's worked with the City of Windsor, as many of you know, as the Health Commissioner for the City of Windsor, and she was responsible for over $250 million in terms of budget, and she had a big staff of about 850 people. Ronna has done extremely well, contributed significantly to the community, and as a result of this, she's won several awards. Some of them is Lifetime Achievement Award from Ontario Municipal Social Services. She's also won an award as a Community Service Award from Community Living Windsor. And in 2014, she was appointed to Ontario College of Teachers as a board member. She has a certificate from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. She provides coaching to people on an individual basis, enabling them to move forward towards attaining their leadership goals. The second speaker we have is Stephanie. And Stephanie is the owner of Aligned and Well. Her passion is to investigate, uncover, and heal that which prevents people from experiencing true mental health. She holds a degree in psychology, a master's degree from the University of Toronto, and is certified trainer for traumatic incident reduction, TIR. She offers professional development workshops for the City of Windsor, local school boards, and community organizations. Stephanie's passion is to support clients by utilizing a wide variety of techniques and modalities, providing a well-rounded, intuitive, and evidence-based approach. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ronna. Ronna will provide her comments, and then we will bring in Stephanie. Over to you, Ronna.
Thanks, Rakesh. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for spending the next hour or so with us. We know how busy you are as leaders, and so we really do appreciate your time, and we're hoping that today you will leave the call feeling a little less stressed, a little more validated, and you will be able to think about your leadership in the next while and what you might want to do more of and what you might want to think about in terms of dialing back a bit. So in my experience, and that's been over 30 years as a leader, I have never seen so many challenges for individuals who are leading. This is an unprecedented time. And if you are a logical leader, one that likes to follow rules and one who likes things to go from A to B to C, then you are having big problems right now. If you're a more spontaneous, creative type of leader where you can do 20 things in a day, then this situation will still be causing you stress, but might not be as hard on you. So as Rakesh mentioned, we all, Stephanie and I are both business owners now. I own a leadership coaching and consulting business, and Stephanie has her own business as well. And so we have experienced the changes in our business as you have all experienced in yours, and some bigger than some smaller. I want to acknowledge that there are people on the line today that are have their employees at work right now and are working through this period of our pandemic. And there are other owners who have had to lay off all your employees. So those are two very different scenarios, but you're still there to lead your company and hopefully to bring your organization or your company back after this is over. And there will be a time when this is behind us. So one of the things that I just want to talk about that you're probably thinking about every day is, first and foremost, will my company survive? What will this look like? Will my staff leave? That's a real question. Will they stick around? Will some of the older staff decide they've had it, they want to hang it up and retire early? Maybe. And those are some questions that I know the leaders that I've worked with over the last month have been asking themselves and trying to plan for in terms of contingency planning. What shifts will we need to make in the future? What will social distancing look like in a bar, a restaurant, in the energy sector, in a bank? Will people want to come into a bank? Will people want to do more work from home? Will my employees even follow the policies that have been placed in terms of dress code? I've had some individuals say, you know, we've put these policies in place for years around customer service, and now we're having our people work from home on the telephone. Will they want to come back and follow those policies? And none of us really have a roadmap, and those are all questions that we're asking ourselves on a daily basis. Some of our employees probably have gone out and found new jobs during this time, and they have pivoted from one employer to another employer, and you're asking yourself, well, are they going to come back to us? Lots of uncertain questions and stress on you as a leader. So let's start about you as a leader and your own mental health and your own ability to think clearly, and some tips I'm going to give you. I think the most important message we have to give to each other and to give to our staff is that we are a team, and we together will get through this. Not me as a leader, but we as together. So if you have management staff, if you're the CEO of a company of managers, you're a manager and you have supervisors and a bunch of employees underneath you, the message has to be loud and clear. You are still part of this company. You may be on EI, you may be on CERB, you may be working in a different location, but you're still part of this company. And I, as a leader, am dependent on you to make us viable in the future. Something that you'll need to be thinking about as you're leading now is that our employees and even ourselves are not able to absorb information the way we used to absorb information. So our anxiety has gone up, our worry, our stress has gone up. So you may need to give your same message to your employees at least 6 times. I know that's driving you crazy to hear that, but employees are busy, they're at home, some of them, they're in different locations, they're not sitting at their computers, things are disruptive, they're anxious. So you may have to repeat your message over and over again. You know, the same thing is happening to all of us at home. You know, you're talking to your partner, to your spouse, to your kids, you think you've said something clearly, but they hear something else. Well, that's the same with your employees. They think they've heard something from you, but they misinterpret it. So you may need to say it again and say it in a different medium and until the message gets through. Because as Stephanie's going to talk about, some of our folks and even ourselves are a bit traumatized at this time. Important to really watch your body language. So to talk slowly when you're on these calls or when you're in a board meeting, and your social distancing, to talk calmly, even though you may be racing inside with all those questions, but to try to convey to the people around you that you got this, that you are the leader, that you're there for them, that you're hearing them. So this is a time where we could really, you know, move a little more quickly, say things without thinking. And it's really a time for us as leaders to slow down and watch how we communicate. What's our face look like? What's our body language look like? What's our tone look like? So the other piece here, I want to communicate to each and every one of you leaders out there. You will make mistakes. You will make mistakes during this time. We are in uncharted waters, and you will make mistakes. So when you do make the mistake, be gentle with yourself, forgive yourself, remind yourself that we've never done this before. If we look at the leaders in our country and they're deciding whether to open the economy this week, next week, the following week, whether to shut down services, whether to open services, you know, we'll all look back and we can be armchair critics, but we don't have a playbook for this. So you don't have a playbook for your company. You may want to predict the future. Will people be coming into my furniture store? What if I renovate? What if I put more distance? Will people want to move to online shopping? Will we have people working at home? We don't know those those answers, and as we predict the future in these incredibly, and again, incredibly uncertain times, we will make mistakes. So again, I'm asking you to please be kind to yourself as you're finding yourself making those mistakes. Your window of patience. So if you have a patience graph like goes like this, your window of patience is now smaller. All of us, our window of patience is smaller. So on this side of our patience graph, we shut down. Person's talking to us, we don't answer, we don't reply, we go away, we feel, many of us are feeling like we're stuck in one place. We feel stuck, we feel trapped, we shut down as our employees are talking to us. And then we have, in the middle of this circle or this window, we have some patience, and then on the other side, we blow up. We've lost it. Our stress levels have gone so high that we say something that we're so sorry we said, and we can't imagine that we said it in that tone. So again, as a leader, I want you to validate that your window of patience is much smaller than it was 3 months ago. It is really, really, really very hard. We have a lot of pressure on us. And so again, you know, thinking before you talk when you're talking to your employees or to your board, really trying to do that talking to yourself before you lose your patience or you shut down, so that you try to keep as calm as possible for most of the day as you possibly can as you try to lead your organization through uncharted territory. Many of us, some people are laughing right now, they're calling it the COVID-15, and that's about gaining weight. So I am saying to you as a leader, you have been going really hard and your stress levels are through the roof. So I encourage you to do things, whatever self-care is for you, whether that's eating healthy and not, you know, eating because we're stressed and we're eating stuff that's really not good for us, taking a walk, having a bath, watching whatever you need to lower your stress level to help you get through the day, whether that's, you know, exercise, whatever it is, to take the time to do it, because you will then be a better leader for your people, and your people are counting on you right now. So what can you do to display a little more patience? You can be curious with people. You can say simple things like, how was your evening? What's on your mind this morning? How are your kids doing with their schoolwork? For those of us that are a little older, we need to remember that some of our staff are homeschooling their children. So asking them, how is that going? How are your parents doing? Do you know, if there's an employee who has a parent in a long-term care facility, to take the time to ask them about that. And most importantly, or equally as important, how do you feel about the future of our company? How are you feeling about our future? Checking in with them and then hearing them and making sure that at this time in particular as a leader, you are a human being. There really is no good time in leadership to be an authoritarian. There's a good time to care about profits. There's a good time to care about productivity. But we all need to step back and remember it's a human-to-human interaction that we're having. That person is not a robot. So making that connection. And trust yourself, because you are in a leadership role for some reason. Somebody along the way recognized, whether it's yourself because you're an entrepreneur, that you were a risk taker, that you were a leader, that you could make good decisions. Trust yourself. We're all scared. We don't know what the future holds, but remember that we're all going day to day in this. And as Rakesh said, we're starting to see the peak and hopefully we're on the downswing. Trust yourself to be able to re-engineer. You will know what to do when the time comes. So remember that. And when you're highly stressed and you want to just like throw up your hands and you're freaking out about that loan you have to repay, and you're freaking out about your mortgage on your property, and you're freaking out because you found out that a whole bunch of staff just left and went somewhere else, or whatever issues you have, that your staff really don't need to see and hear about that. Your staff are counting on you to be strong, to be measured. So who can you talk about around those issues? Who can you reach out to? And this is a time to reach out. So is there another business owner you can talk to? When I'm coaching right now, I'm coaching some branch managers that work for a particular bank in town, and they are calling each other on a daily basis because they are dealing with staff that have never reported to them and doing business in a very different way. So they are counting on each other to talk through their problems, and they're not talking to their staff about how crazy making it feels to them to be a leader right now. So remember that there's a boundary there, and while it might feel good to you in the moment to share your frustration, it's not really helpful to your staff. I think too, for you to remember that you may be anxious and you want to send a text or you want to send an email and it's 11 o'clock at night. Your staff see you as know that you are the boss, you are the leader of the company, and they feel compelled to answer you at 11 o'clock at night. I'd ask you to think about this. Could that text, could that email have waited? Even though you're so stressed, could you have waited to the next day? Jot it down to lower your own anxiety, and then think about the boundaries that people need to put between their work life and their home life. And if there's something that can wait, then I encourage you to really try to wait, because people are dealing with a lot in the evenings and throughout their day. What's happening now? People at the beginning were having regular meetings with their managers. Very important to stay connected because we're so disconnected, whether your staff are off-site or you're on-site or you're not in the same close quarters that you used to be. So have those regular check-ins, but people are zoomed out. And remember that. You may be on different Zoom calls than they are, but they are zoomed out. So think about, does this really require a Zoom meeting, or could it be addressed in an email or a phone call? And to keep your Zoom calls short if you can, to the point. And how about we have a conversation when we're Zooming that's not about the virus, that talks about the future, that checks in with people, that is maybe something that's fun. We're seeing people now in leadership roles working 12, 14 hours a day. You've all worked those, and or you've been working 14 hours a day. So remembering that you need to talk about something that's optimistic with your team, and not just talk about the worries and the issues and the challenges that you have. So checking in with people around things that feel optimistic, that feel hopeful to all of us. My middle name is Hope, and so I do encourage you to think about your meetings and whether they're kind of all doom and gloom, or whether you can find another medium for them, or whether you can inject some hope and optimism into your company. And that's your job as a leader. As Rakesh said, it's really your job right now as running your company to find out what grants are available to you. I know that I sure have watched every day, and I do look for opportunities. If you're a landlord, there were some subsidies last week that were put out there. I'm not going to get into all of them, but it isn't your job as a leader to pay attention and to make sure. I know that all of us who are entrepreneurs, and I spent many years in government, and there's lots of us that laugh about the government being there to help us. But at this time, the government is trying to help us. And it is our job as leaders to know how they're trying to help us and to take advantage when we possibly can. So the key message here is to self-regulate, is to validate that this is the hardest time for us ever to lead. As Rakesh said, I used to work at the provincial government, at the city. I have a lot of empathy for the folks that had to pivot because this is pivotal leadership. This is a time where we have to pivot, where we have to re-engineer, where we have to look for grants, where we have to build new partnerships, where people are thinking about the future. So remembering that we are pivoting in our business, but we can't do it alone. We need our employees with us. And so it's that connection with our employees. And where you see an employee really struggling and having a really heck of a hard time, to recognize that they may actually be experiencing trauma. If you think about those hospital employees and what they've been through, the doctors, the nurses, the first responders, our grocery employees, tons of people working in youth detention centers, all jails, they have all been through very difficult times, our EMS folks. So if you're leading those organizations, or even just leading an organization where people are now collecting EI and they used to have a nice income, to remember that all of what we've been through can be traumatic for us. So at this juncture, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Stephanie to talk to you about ways to recognize trauma and some things you can do to help your employees. Thanks, and I'll be back later for some questions.
Thank you, Ronna. And thanks everyone for joining on the call. I know that you're all quite busy and have a lot of things to handle. I'm going to actually do a screen share and share my PowerPoint presentation with you. And I've done this because like Ronna said, I understand that people need more than, they need to hear the message more than one time and more than one way. So I'm going to share it with you visually, and I'm also going to share it with you auditorily through words. And if you have questions, please do type them in the chat box, because we'd like to answer them after the webinar is over, at the end of it. So I'd like to help you figure out how to promote mental wellness in the face of potential trauma, not only with your employees, but also for yourself, for your family members. It's difficult to lead if you yourself are not doing well. So my background is as a trainer for a modality called traumatic incident reduction. And of course, as you can imagine, we primarily deal with trauma as well as life stress. And I'm not going to go too much detail into what TIR is, but I just do want to let you know that it is an evidence-based modality. It's been around for approximately 40 years. It's part of the National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices, which is a branch of the Health and Human Services Department of the Government of the United States, and it's recognized by professional organizations in Canada as well. So I want to explain to you just a little bit about what trauma is, so that when I give you some quick tips and tricks at the end of my presentation, it's not like I'm just saying, please do this, but I'm giving you the rationale behind why it would work and why it is necessary. So when people think of trauma, it's a really hot, trendy word right now, and everybody's talking about it, at least in the mental health circles. But I feel like it's a little bit of a misnomer, because people will automatically think of things like war veterans or tsunamis, natural disasters, things that appear as though they would be traumatic for everybody. But the truth of the matter is that it's not necessarily about the event itself. It is rather about the person's relationship to the event. And so right now, going through COVID and the virus and social isolation, this may be traumatic for some people and not traumatic for other people. It depends on the person's relationship to the event. And you, whether you realize it or not, you actually have a large impact in terms of how people are going to relate to this event. And so I want to empower you first to understand that, so that you understand that you do wield some power. And once I give you these tools, then you can wield those tools to really help your staff, so that when they're working right now, or if they're on EI when they return to work, that they're not distracted and have their attention taken away by this continual attempts to reprocess what they're going through right now. We want them to go through it right now. So these are the two options, the way people respond to a painful event. You can either, one, fully experience that event, and yes, that's what we want, or two, you can suppress it and block it. And that is what we don't want. So to fully experience it, that means that you have to feel the pain of it, and that your staff, you have to allow them to feel their pain about it. which in order to really feel and experience what you're going through, you have to perceive and understand your circumstances. You have to examine them and you have to express how you feel about them. If you allow your staff to do this and you allow yourself to do this, this actually leads to full processing and integration of the experience, and it actually prevents it from turning into a trauma. This right here, just this one slide, if you can remember this, you can actually stave off or prevent if you allow yourself to stay fully present with what it is that you're experiencing. The other option, unfortunately, is to suppress it and block it. And people may do this because it's too uncomfortable, because they don't like sitting with uncomfortable feelings or negative emotions. They might block it right out of their awareness. They could suppress any part of their experience. And these things that get suppressed, they don't stay below the surface. They're just sitting there waiting, like rats under a floorboard. You know, they're scratching and you can hear them and you know they're there. And sometimes they'll pop out in different forms. So I feel like also suppression is a misnomer because it makes it sound like we can actually really successfully suppress things, but it will always find a way out. We call that, in TIR, we call that emotional charge, or sometimes just charge. The consequence of this, as you can imagine, is of suppressing it and blocking it, is that people experience resistance, negative emotions, disordered thinking, emotional pain, or psychosomatic pain, which is physical ailments in the body that don't have a medical explanation, yet they still exist. This is psychosomatic, means it's basically the mental health or the state of the person, the way that they perceive something happening, how that internalizes in the body and causes illness in the body, and also abnormal behavior. The consequences that I observe with my clients in my private practice is decreased concentration. And as I go through this slide, I'd like you to think about how these consequences will affect your staff's ability to be productive for you, to be present with you, to, if they work with your patrons or your customers, their ability to engage in, you know, self-controlled, healthy relationships with them. So what I do observe is there's decreased concentration, decreased memory, decreased productivity, of course, increased agitation and anxiety, poor self-regulation, and difficulty in relationships. These consequences matter. They matter for you, for your family, for your business, for your bottom line, and they matter for these individuals who are looking to you, you know, in this time. So how to support? It's actually easier than you think, and I want you to leave this workshop with a sense that there is something you can do, even though the magnitude of the situation we're in is absolutely enormous. And in mental health, what we always want to do with people is take a problem that's huge, that a lot of it you can't control, and shrink it down into something that you can do something about, which leaves you with a sense of power and control or mastery, that you're working within your sphere of influence and that there is something you can do. So what I'm suggesting you do here is you facilitate the release of charge. And, you know, I've chosen this picture of, you know, a dam opening up. If the dam was closed, this is how most people are walking around. They're like stuffed back, they're holding things in, and then one little thing irks them the wrong way, and here comes the flood. So we want to actually facilitate that and allow it to come out so that our employees even have just a chance to really feel and experience what it is that they're going through. And that's hard for you because as a leader, if you're anything like me or Ronna, when we have people who are struggling, what we want to do is evaluate how they're handling it and fix the problem for them. But the problem with this is that if you jump in and you start to offer solutions, or you interpret what they're thinking, or you evaluate it, what you're doing is you're actually blocking their processing. This is really important. You do not want to block their processing, because if they're in the middle of expressing something, that's them feeling and fully being with the experience as it is, which that in and of itself can prevent it from turning into a trauma. So you have to hold off on your like, let me solve this for you, let me find the solution. There is a place for that, but it's later after the charge has come out. There is a modality called DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, and one of the founding principles of it is a term called validation. And you heard Ronna mention it several times. And the way that you validate someone is you look interested in what they're saying, no multitasking, which is hard for leaders because that's what we do. There's a million things to do. And so we're always trying to do more than one thing at a time, but that doesn't work. That's very invalidating. So you want to look interested and prevent multitasking, even just for these small moments where you're listening to your staff. Reflective listening means you repeat back using their words, not paraphrasing or substituting your own words. And the reason for this is because people need to feel heard, and they need to see themselves reflected back in the person that they're speaking to. And when that happens, something in the attention system puts a little check mark and says, okay, I was heard, that was recognized. I know they heard it because they said it back to me. So my mind can move on. It can kind of like put that to rest and go to the next point. Understand what they say. Acknowledge that what they're saying makes sense. And it doesn't mean that you're going to repeat back something they said that you know isn't true, or something that's insulting, or something that's degrading. But you're going to try to look for the nugget of truth in what they're saying. And if you can find that small piece and repeat that piece back to them, it will still achieve the same result as snipping the attention. They get to put the little check mark in their mind that they've been heard, and they can move on. It's really important to clarify that when you validate someone, you are not saying that you agree with them. You are not saying that their perspective is correct. All you're saying is that you hear them, and that's what they need. People just need to feel heard, to be seen. And here's just, you can write these two little ideas down. These are kind of fill in the blank sentences that I'm giving you, and you can use these over and over and over again. People never get tired of being validated. They never get tired of hearing themselves reflected back to themselves. So it makes sense that you would feel blank, and you plug in emotion, right? It makes sense that you would feel anxious when, and then you plug in what is the situation that's causing them to feel anxious. It makes sense that you would feel anxious when you still have just as many deadlines, yet you don't have the same opportunities to gather the information you need in order to meet those deadlines. Or it makes sense that you would feel angry that you want to come to work, but you're not allowed to come to work, and now you're on EI and you have to take a reduced wage. Or it makes sense that you would feel frustrated that you're not getting XYZ. You know, there's a million different ways, and your validation statement is dependent on what the person is bringing to you. So think about what it is they're saying. You know, and Ronna mentioned to be kind to yourself and to forgive yourself. So you can use this tool. It makes sense that you would feel blank when blank for yourself. You know, if you're talking to yourself, I would say to myself, you know, Stephanie, it makes sense that, you know, you would feel overwhelmed when all of a sudden all your practices have been done in person and you protect people's privacy and confidentiality and cabinets are locked and all of that. It makes sense that you would feel overwhelmed and nervous when now all of a sudden you have to try to protect everybody's privacy and confidentiality in a virtual platform, which you're not familiar with. That's how you forgive yourself, is you validate your experience. You can also say, I hear you, you think blank, and you just repeat back what they say. I'd like to know in the chat box what you think about this tool, because it's very, very simple. And when I teach it, people always say, oh, that's simple, I can do that. But then when they go to try to do it, they find that they can't do it because they're stuck in a pattern of what they usually do, which is in their mind, they say, to what the person is saying, and then they put forth their thoughts. And this is the opposite. You're not going to put forth your thoughts. You're going to reflect back to them their thoughts. So just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. So I'm going to give you a way to try to implement this. I call it 2 stars and a wish. But if that's too cutesy for you, you could call it 2 yeses and a no. But really what it is it gives your, I'm going to say staff, but it could also be it gives your spouse, or it gives your child, or it gives your parents, or it gives your colleagues, or it gives your friends, or it gives your other managers, or whoever you're having an interaction or a relationship with. It gives them an opportunity, you give them an opportunity, one, to express 2 pieces of gratitude. And in times when things are hard, and everybody knows things are hard right now, and I don't need to go into all the reasons why, but when things are hard and it hits people hard and they feel it hard, this is like the critical point where you try to cultivate something to be grateful for. So in the most difficult periods in my life, when nothing worked, I would just get a little journal, and each night before bed, I would make myself write 3 things that I was grateful for. And it can be the same things every single time. I actually just found this journal the other day while I was looking for something else, and I read through it. And almost every day I just wrote that I was grateful that we had clean running water coming out of the taps, or that I was thankful for my partner, or that I was thankful that the sun was shining that day. In really hard times, there is still something to be grateful for, and it's hard to find it. And so with the 2 stars, you can really kind of like coach people to like look for something that they can be grateful for. And there is always something, even amidst all of the things that are troublesome and challenging. And then the wish is where you let them open the dam and let them flood the water out. And maybe you want to, I don't know how you want to work it for your own business, but maybe you want to set a time limit. Like, I would be explicit with people. Say, I'm starting this new thing. It's because I want you to feel heard. I want you to feel validated. I want you to know that I'm here for you. Like Ronna was saying, I want you to know we're part of a team. I'm still your leader. You can still look to me. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to set up this structure, and each time we get in contact, I'm going to ask you for 2 stars and a wish. And in the stars, I just want you to tell me 2 things that you're thankful for in your life. And they might need you to prompt them the way that I've just prompted you with some examples. And with the wish, I'm going to give them a set number of minutes. Like, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, or I'm going to give you 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And in this time, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm not going to evaluate what you're saying. I'm just going to let you get some charge off and tell me, what are you wishing for? And, leave it unbound so that they can talk about what they're wishing for. Maybe it's professionally, maybe it's personally. Like Ronna said, asking them about, how it's going with homeschooling. There's a lot of people in, my age bracket and younger that are really struggling with homeschooling their children. It's not easy. And that's why not everyone is a teacher. So they have a lot of other stresses. And during this wish, if you leave it unbound and let them talk about whatever they wish for, it may not be things that have anything to do with your business. And that's okay. Because if you just allow the dam to open, allow them to fully feel the pain. Remember this slide. To fully experience it, they have to feel the pain. They have to perceive what's going on, understand it, examine it, and express it. When you're giving them the wish, this is what you're letting them do. And you're facilitating that. You're providing the safe space for them to do that. And you make it safe by not interpreting or evaluating it or fixing it or sharing your story or trying to tell them how to think about it or try to change their perspective. You're just letting them get it out. Oh, and before we go into questions, I just want to share one other slide with you. It was funny that Ronna was talking about, she called it your window of patience. But quite interestingly, this is a real concept in psychology, and it's called the window of tolerance. And in the middle, we have the comfort zone where people are emotionally regulated and able to self-soothe. And then things that cause us to go out of that zone, and we become either hyperactivated, which can be anxious, overwhelmed, chaotic responses, emotional outbursts, or we can go into hypoactivated, which is more dissociated, not present, flat, disconnected, autopilot. You may recognize some of these in your staff or in your family. understand that this is part of their nervous system. And what we want to do is get them back into the window of tolerance, or get yourself back into the window of tolerance. So this little spot here in the orange, just going to try to zoom in on it. To get back into the window of tolerance, you see that they're suggesting very specific things. Mindfulness, meaning be present in the here and now. That's part of being fully experiencing what you're going through. Grounding exercises. Grounding exercises just mean doing anything, using your senses to bring yourself back to the present moment. So you could do something as simple as, you know, taking your fingertips and rubbing them together and trying to feel the different fingerprints on your fingers. Or you could listen really closely to see if you hear the subtle sounds in your environment. Or you could taste something. So using sight, sound, taste, touch, all of the 5 senses, that's how you ground yourself, bringing yourself back into the present, because otherwise the mind is off. It's either in the back, in the past, or it's running forward into the future. And Lao Tzu, who was the founder of Taoism, which is a wonderful philosophy about how to live peacefully, he says that those who live in the past will experience depression. Those who live in the future will experience anxiety. To be well, you have to live in the present, but that's a gift, and you have to be here to receive it. So grounding is about being here. And if you find your mind is running forward or running back, do something with your senses to bring yourself back into the present. Techniques for self-soothing, calming the body, and emotional regulation, deep, slow breathing. There's a wonderful app that's called the Insight Timer, and that's just spelt INSIGHT, and it's a free app. You can get it on either iPhone or Android. And the Insight Timer is full of guided meditations, progressive muscle relaxation, grounding exercises, guided like following your breath. There's a lot of things on there, and it's free. So I would jot that down, Insight Timer, get the app, it's free, and just explore it. And if possible, learn meditation. There's courses available online. I teach courses. I'm in the middle of an 8-week course right now, but if you have interest for yourself or your company, just reach out to me. I think the Chamber is going to share our contact information. On that note, in terms of sharing contact information, I'm going to turn it back to Ronna, and she's going to share with you a list. It's quite an extensive and impressive list of mental health supports in our community in Windsor-Essex on a wide range of topics. So I highly recommend, and I mean, I know I'm a therapist, so you would expect me to say this, but I highly recommend you find someone to talk to. Highly recommend, because by talking to them, you're going to be fully feeling, fully experiencing, even the painful stuff. And the painful stuff doesn't go away by you suppressing it. You're just tucking it away for later. So better to process it while it's here, while it's present, while it's in front of you, than to have it, you know, steal your time for the rest of your life. So traumatic incident reduction is a modality that there are many facilitators in Windsor-Essex County who are trained in traumatic incident reduction. So if you're interested in that modality specifically, my caseload is full, but you can still email me and I will send you a list of TIR facilitators in the city who are accepting new clients. So thanks for your attention, and I'll give it back to Ronna to go over the list.
Hi there. I really tried to keep this list short and sweet so as not to overwhelm anyone, especially after hearing how we need to be present and we need to go slowly. So rather than listing all of the services that you could find for someone who's drinking too much, taking drugs, highly anxious, needs help with their rent, I find that a lot of people, even in our own community, don't know. They do know that if there's a pothole or your neighbor has a dirty yard, you can call 311, or your garbage hasn't been picked up, call 311, or you have a complaint about your counselor, call 311. But in the city of Windsor, and for the city and the county both, you can call 211, just dial on your phone 211, and you'll speak to someone about the right type of support, or describe what you're looking for your employee, and get a list of some organizations that might help. A number of organizations have moved to virtual, but there's also some walk-in supports for people as well. So I've listed, you can just simply call 211, or you can put that link in. The email is listed there, info@211 Southwest Ontario, or the web browser. And the web browser will take you to a list of organizations. Just type in Windsor and you'll get a bunch of organizations that are available and out there that are still operating. I was head of, as Rakesh said, social and health services, and I spent years at the provincial government. So I've never seen the agencies that I've been involved with become so important as they are now, because our own anxiety and the anxiety of people around us, our staff, has really increased during this time, and for good reason. And so I do encourage you to try 211 if you want to talk to someone in person, or those links email to look at a list of services that are available locally. And then I've listed the 3 new services that have been developed. I was part of those early developments. The Windsor-Essex Counseling Support Line is listed, and really that's Family Service Windsor has folks that are on the phones, able to talk to your staff or yourself. The Food Help Line, thank you to Green Shield. They helped out greatly in terms of these helplines. The Seniors Call Assurance Line is also listed there. And then the next slide, I just really want to tell you that there are many experienced social workers, folks like Stephanie and others in the community. I'm a leadership coach. I'm available to help folks get through this. If you're a leader, I sometimes do understand what it's like to lead in difficult times, and so my services are a little more tailored to what you might need. And psychologists, and interestingly enough, many are offering reduced fees, or they're not even charging right now. So many people I know and leaders have been reluctant to call because it's like, I don't have the money right now to pay $180 an hour for my psychologist. And interestingly enough, I'll say to you that I called mine and she just answered the phone and talked to me for free. Not all of them are doing that, but if you talk to them, they will, and you tell them, I'm really having difficulty financially right now. Many of them are reducing their fees. Social workers are less expensive than psychologists, but they are available and working together to help out as well. So I do encourage, as Stephanie said, for you as a leader to reach out. If you're doing well emotionally, then you're more able to take care of your staff. So again, it says here, it's not advertised. So the folks that are out there with, like Stephanie and others, I happen to be married to a therapist, they're not advertising that they're working and taking people basically with less fees, and depending on whatever it is that you can afford, but they're out there. And why not ask? Don't be too proud. Remember that your own mental health as a leader is really important. And I think one of the things I want to emphasize with respect to what Stephanie said is it's really important for us to A, get our feelings out, but B, as much as possible, stay in the moment, stay present in today rather than thinking down the road. So I'm going to turn it back now to Rakesh, who's going to have some questions he wants to ask.
Thanks, Ronna, and thanks, Stephanie. You shared some very insightful information here. And, as leaders, and those of us, who have been in leadership position for some time, know that leading is never easy. and it is even more difficult during this time. So, the tips that you offered are very practical, and these are the ones that we need to really, embrace, because we do definitely need help ourselves. As Ronna, you just pointed out, that we need to take care of ourselves so that we can lead others. So, bringing your mind in the present moment, living in the present, as both you and Stephanie mentioned, extremely important. And I have been into meditation and yoga for many years, and I have to honestly say here that whatever little capabilities I have, whatever little I have to learn and implement, and whatever little patience I have, it is only because of the practice that I have, which is to bring the mind time and again into the present moment. And there are many ways of doing that. Stephanie mentioned about that. The way that I do it is by focusing on the breath and using breath as a tool. And it's a very powerful thing to do. There's no cost to it. Using your own breath, which we are all gifted. It's something that we all have from the time we are born, and it's the last act of life. We'll be breathing out, and that's the last thing we'll do. So using breath as a tool, to bring the mind in the present moment has worked immensely for me. So there are many different resources available there. And Ronna, thanks for mentioning about several of them that are here in this community that people can take advantage of. And also that many of them are being offered at no cost or very little cost. So I'm really happy to see that our community is stepping up, and many professionals are offering the services at very little cost or no cost. So again, great information being shared here, and we will have this information on our website. We do have a few questions that I would like to take up. I think there is one for, I believe, Stephanie, and this is one second. Where is it? Okay, here I think maybe you have already addressed it, but I'll read it for you. Would you mind giving an example of something someone may say for 2 stars and a wish? It's the wish I'm wondering about. So they want to know a little bit more about what that wish component is.
Thank you. The wish is anything that they want. So I see you're asking me, like, how could you prompt them maybe, or so that they have an idea of what it is. I'll just give you, like, rattle off some examples that I've heard people say. I wish, and I'm not, as I rattle these off, I'm not saying these are my positions. I'm just saying that these are the things that people may say. I wish that people would stop hoarding groceries. I wish that the government would have responded sooner. I wish that everybody in long-term care facilities had proper PPE. I wish that I wish that we would have gone into self-isolation sooner. I wish that my spouse would leave the house for an hour so that I could be alone by myself. I wish that I would have not treated my children's teachers the way that I have. Like, now I just want to, like, thank them and hug them and tell them I understand how difficult their job is. I wish that my child would stop asking me questions. I wish that it was not snowing in April. I wish. And really what you'll get is like a flood of responses. And if you don't interrupt them and you don't evaluate them, they will just keep pouring out. So that might be why you want to give them a time limit and, have a little bell go off and just really, like, explain to them what the purpose of it is to really just get it out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question. So first, compliments to you and Stephanie from the attendee. And the question is, it makes me wonder if upping our employee engagement is a good way of helping promote the team approach and also to help mitigate the trauma. What do you think?
I think that's a good one for Ronna, if you'd like, Ronna.
Ronna, can you keep your video on, please?
Sorry. Whoops, hang on.
You had it out.
Can't get it on. Hang on.
On the left-hand side, there's the.
I got it. Okay.
There.
Sorry, I was having trouble just with the mouse on my computer, not the pad. Anyway, okay. So the question. Give me the question again, Rakesh.
If upping our employee engagement is a good way of helping promote the team approach and also to help mitigate the trauma.
Yeah, You know, I think right now we're pivoting, and I want to say, especially for folks who are running a business and their staff are all off temporarily, what are we doing to connect with those people one by one to keep them engaged in the business? So are we talking about what our thoughts are for the future? Are we having regular meetings even though those people aren't working? And then you know, for folks where you do have staff working, then absolutely checking in and keeping them engaged. But again, engaged not just in the problems. Oh my God, my revenues have gone down. Oh my goodness, like there are no programs. Oh, I can't pay my bills at the end of the month. Oh, I don't know whether our restaurant or bar is going to open. Those are real for us, as leaders. Oh my goodness, for the city that are we have to now open another emergency shelter. Now we're opening emergency childcare centers. We've never done this before. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But to bring them around the table and say, okay, guys, which operators would you approach? How would you do this? What are you thinking about? What have you been reading about? What novel ideas do you have? To remember, even though we're spinning, because we have to acknowledge that we're all spinning as leaders, that we need to slow down enough to hear their ideas so that they feel valued and validated. And that is really, especially the first 2 weeks of this, I'm telling you, Rakesh, I heard stories from employees who called me for coaching that I have never heard in 6 years of coaching. Their bosses had said really awful, mean things to them. I don't know another word to call them, but they were not inviting them into the tent. They were giving them orders. They were instructing them what to do. They were yelling at them. And that does not help at the end of the day. When this is over, those employees are going to remember that. For the same money, those employees and the people I'm coaching say, do you know that my company sent me food in on Friday night? Every person, 200 people in our company, and we are making no money, but 200 people got a meal from this company. Or they're paying for me to be coached by you. Like they will not forget that. So bringing people in and asking them what they need and showing even a phone call or an email or a little card matters so much right now to everybody. This is a time where we are needing that connection. So bringing those people into the room, and again, not doing it like ad nauseum, because people are tired of their screens and people got work to do and things to deliver. And you as owners have to worry about your profits, but knowing the right balance of that touch point of bringing them into the tent.
Thanks, Ronna. You know, and I think as leaders, we have to understand that leading is a privilege. You know, we have been in this position now, we've been put in this position. We've a great group of people that work for us, and we have a lot of responsibility towards them. So it's one, taking care of ourselves, but also being responsible for them. And because how we deal with them will eventually affect, you know, their mental space and how they deal with their families and so on, right? So it's important that we put them in good space. And it's not easy, you know, if we thought that, you know, leading through this time of lockdown was easy, wait till we start working on the opening and the recovery phase, because that's going to be even more stressful. That's the time when we'll need to be even more positive in terms of our interactions and how we deal with our staff and employees and how we're taking care of ourselves. So everything that you shared, you and Stephanie shared today, it's been very useful. We are just about a time. We've actually exceeded a time. So I want to, you know, thank you. Both of you immensely for sharing some wonderful tips that both of you have provided. And thanks for also allowing us, you know, to post your presentation on the Chamber website. So we'll have it available soon. I also want to remind everyone that we have, you know, other webinars that we're doing. Tomorrow, we have a webinar on a very important topic, and that is tax planning in the current situation or in an economic downturn situation. So here you can learn more about, you know, how do you take care of, you know, strategies where you can, where there's loss, and how do you utilize those strategies. what kind of business investment losses are allowed at this time, how do you make tax efficient distributions, how do you plan for cash flow, and what are some of the opportunities for shareholders. So topics which are very relevant and important this time. Hope you can join us, hope you can take advantage of this. And on Friday morning at 9:45, we are inviting Minister Melanie Joly, who's the Minister for Economic Development. And she's been very gracious to give us some time. She's very busy, but she recognizes the importance of the region as a strong driver of Ontario's economy and Canadian economy. And she has made time to be here with us. So she'll talk a bit about what the federal government has been doing, but she's here to take questions, comments, concerns. She wants to hear from us so that she can take that as an input in formulating the policies that will come in the future, or even amending some of the programs that have been announced. So again, that's on Friday, 9:45, and it's limited number of people we can take for that. So please sign up. The information on that program is available on our website as well. So with that, I thank you for being here today with us, and hope you found this conversation very useful for you. As usual, we are very interested in hearing from you. So please continue to provide your comment and input to us. Thanks. Take care and stay safe.
Bye, everyone.